3, 2, 1, liftoff.
Cannabinoid Connect, the nation's most diverse cannabis-related podcast.
All right. We are recording. Will Reed is on the scene in beautiful Vermont. For those of you that are not watching the podcast but listening, I kind of feel sorry for you because you're missing out on something beautiful. Will, please explain to me where you're sitting and what are the green lushes? Yeah.
So I live in Waterbury, Vermont, and this is Waterbury behind me, and that's kind of what the my side of the Mad River Valley. So on the other side of this ridge here is the Mad River Valley of Vermont. It's where like sugar bushes out there. I don't know what else is out there that's kind of cool, but Mad River, of course. And then on the other side over there, about 10 miles is Stowe, and about 30 minutes up the road that way is Burlington. But yeah, I figured we have a beautiful, really Vermonty night. So I thought I'd take this podcast from, we got some golden hour about to happen. We'll give you a view or some sunset will happen for sure. We'll get some cool sky, but
it's going to set the mood for sure.
yeah.
Gonna help guide
really
us.
ham it up. Absolutely.
Well, let's get into it. Will, I think first and foremost, your background is pretty. The word that comes to mind is like extensive. I mean, I saw, music industry. You went into tech, entrepreneurship, and then you worked at Apple for some period. So tell us about your journey and along the way how you've been able to kind of cultivate these different skill sets and kind of make it your own and put it into play as to what you're doing for CannaPlanners.
I'm a survivalist, man, with like very little skill set. I think I'm a master, a jack of all trades and a master of none. But I've kind of one of those guys who found himself in bands, and doing lots of different things and living in New York City. I played the guitar. I still technically play it in that if you gave it to me and put a gun to my head, I could probably do something. But yeah, I played the guitar. Actually, one of my co-founders, Josh, who's the creative director of the company, he and I, we met here in Vermont. I went to college at St. Lawrence and he went to Colby in Maine. St. Lawrence is in upstate New York. And we both kind of landed here and we found each other via music. And we toured the country for like 3 or 4. I don't know. Jeez, let me think about this for a second. How many years was that? So like 4 years, and in the last like 3 years, we were probably doing like 200 plus nights a year. So we got to know each other very, 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 very well.
I bet. Yeah.
Sorry. And we just like, we went through a lot. So we traveled the country. We got to see a lot. We were young. So we were kind of really figuring out life firsthand. But obviously, because you're not interviewing Will Reed, the rock star, you're interviewing Will Reed, the former washed up wannabe rock star. It didn't pan out. It's a hard slog, man. I don't know that being a touring musician is much of even a thing anymore. I feel like the music industry is pretty digital, a lot of DJs out there, but when I was in my early 20s, there were a lot of bands on the road, and it's just like a hard slog, man. Like a lot of work, a lot of physical work, a lot of driving, a lot of obviously late nights. Sometimes you're not living as healthy as you probably should be, but
right.
Eventually we just kind of decided, this is it. This is it. So that's when I moved to New York, and I started working. I was in the music industry for a little while, but that was around the time the housing crisis, the financial crisis of 2007 was happening. So the music industry, as it was then, like just kind of fully collapsed at that point, at least like in the areas that I was doing it, which was marketing. So that was around the time MySpace was coming out, Facebook had just come out, so all these platforms were like Yeah, all these platforms,
Yeah.
Bandcamp and like all those, platforms for musicians. So, um, yeah, that went away. And then Apple. So I found Apple. Luckily, I found Apple.
And you had a marketing position at Apple? What did you do there?
No, not even. Like Apple was just. I mean, it started off as like, fuck, man, I need a job. I need a job right now, and I got a job at retail, and I had a life in New York City. I had a girlfriend who, I wanted to get back to. I wanted to get back to my life in New York City, and Apple's. I was living in at that time. I had to like move back to my parent. I was living in my parents' basement in Rhode Island. So I was like, how do I figure this out? How do I get back to the city? How do I get back to my girlfriend? Like, what am I going to do? So Apple was, it's just, I don't know why. It just seemed like a good means to an end, which was like, I could probably, I'll get a job, in Providence or, in Boston really. And then maybe I'll transfer to New York. And luckily that's exactly what happened. So
Wow. It all worked out. The stars aligned, it sounds like.
yeah. And the cool thing about Apple was like, despite like living like a pretty being on the road, like I said, it's hard. And despite all the lessons I learned on the road, I really came into myself as like a professional person, like understanding what relationships really meant at Apple. So, I went from your just normal front of house retail employee to I really wanted to start learning how to do larger business sales. So I became one of the business managers at Apple. That's how I got back to New York City.
Wow.
And all that was just selling businesses Apple products.
Right. At the commercial level, basically, right? Yeah.
Yeah, at the commercial level. And it taught me the cool thing about Apple was like I never really was a salesperson. Growing up, my dad was always like, "William, you're going to be a salesman," and in my brain, I was just like, "Oh, that sounds so gross. Like, what does that even mean? I don't even understand that." But really, what he was saying is like, "William, you have this knack for building relationships, and you could sell sand to a camel." So, um,
And that's
that
half the
at
battle,
Apple, I kind
man.
of what's
Yeah.
that?
I mean, just having those interpersonal skills, right? I mean, there's some people that don't have the skill or even maybe the knowledge of the product they're selling, but the fact that they interact well with others, they're charismatic and they're likable, I mean, goes a long way, especially when you're doing face to face sales and deals, So it sounds like
Absolutely.
you kind of mastered that or learned that at Apple and applied that throughout your life, which is great.
Yeah, it's passion for the product, and really the ability to have a pretty normal conversation. Like Apple didn't hold you to any quotas. They weren't expecting you to sell the most expensive products they own that they offered. In fact, that
Mhm.
they really wanted you to sell the more beginner level products because that's really what people needed. So it was about they taught me how to have conversations about how people were going to use the products they were buying, and that just beyond the relationship aspect of it, I understood the psychology behind it, which is like if I sell a person, if I have a great interaction with a person, and it takes an hour out of my day, even if it takes all day long, and all they do is leave with like an iPod Nano. Do you remember iPod Nanos?
Of
Really?
course, of
Like
course,
whatever,
yeah.
whatever the cheapest, they left with a mouse or whatever. Like they spent $100 on a track, whatever it was. Like I was fairly confident, and Apple as an organization, because this was their ethos, was fairly confident that when that person needed a computer or when they needed 20 computers for their business or whatever the solution was, they were going to come back right back. And maybe because they had that relationship with me, they were going to come back and look for me and want me to help them with that. So
Yeah.
that was a really liberating experience in terms of like, oh, I don't have to put so much pressure on myself to like be some inauthentic version of myself in order to like grow professionally. Like I'm just going to be myself, and thank God, because like I'm like I had barely got that figured out. How am I going to be somebody else?
It's a good time to be authentic, though, Will. I mean, this is the
Yeah,
age of authenticity, you know. So,
for sure, man.
and it screams that through social media, right? I mean, people can tell right away if something's too corporate or too branded or too. People
Yeah,
just want to see humans, want to see faces, and be real with it. So
100%.
this is a good segue because, like, the big question, and this is the exciting part, is like, when and why cannabis, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about your journey there.
So cannabis has pretty much always been a part of my life since, I admittedly was a child, right? So it's been there for a long time. Being a musician, living that kind of lifestyle, being a hippie from Vermont who loves the band Fish, like eventually cannabis is going to cross your path, right? And it did for me pretty early. So it kind of, I've always had it's always been part of my life. Never in a million years, if you'd asked me prior to 2015 if I thought I was going to be able to do something professional. And I mean, if I'm sure a lot of people say this to you, but like, yeah, I had no idea. So, really, CannaPlanners is the birth of CannaPlanners is a confluence of events. First of all, my age. I was just turning 35. I was at that point back here in Vermont. I was working a 9 to 5. I was a professional dude, like I wore a shirt with a collar. Like it was great, but it sucked. It totally wasn't who I wasn't me.
Right.
And I worked this job for years. And but anyway, so I was turning 35. I was having that, what hippie chicks call your Saturn returns, right? So like I was being faced with like, oh fuck, like is this my life? Like, which that's fine. It just wasn't for me, So that was happening. Cannabis was becoming legal in Colorado. That was happening. There were several companies in Burlington that were doing that had the business model that I based CannaPlanners off of, that were doing extraordinarily well. There was a company that was, at that time, I don't think they exist anymore, but at that time they employed like 50 or 60 people, and they did digital marketing websites and digital marketing for grocery stores. There was one that did it for plumbers and like air conditioner, HVAC people. There's one that did it for real estate agencies, which is actually the company that I worked for. And then there was one down the road called dealer.com. And that one, that was an automotive agency, and they were huge. They were the biggest employer in Vermont. Probably got like, I mean, at that time, 3 or 4, maybe 500 employees just in their Burlington office.
Wow.
And they were being acquired for the second time for like $1.4 billion. Right.
Whoa.
So you can like, I'm like in my corner office, right? Like looking out the window, being like, why not me? Like, it's my turn. Like, what do I do? Right. I'm just faced. I don't know if you relate to this at all, but like, I'm at the literal crossroads of like, what the fuck do I do with my life? Like, I'm not fulfilled. I'm good at this thing that I'm doing right now, but it doesn't like, and cannabis. Oh, this cannabis is becoming legal. Like maybe there's something here. And because of my relationship with Apple, bless you, bless you, bless you.
Thank you.
I at the time I was like, maybe maybe I'll plan. Maybe I'll become a retailer. I had lots of experience with retail. And I booked a trip out to. So it's like maybe I'll start a dispensary. Whenever Vermont legalizes, I'll just open up a dispensary. You can see it starting to happen behind me, right?
It is the golden hour.
Sun's golden hour is happening. So I booked a flight. I booked a flight to Denver and hung out with a friend of mine who was living out there, and he was a little bit connected. And I met some dispensary owners. I toured some retails, and I remembered how much I fucking hate retail, right? And how hard it is to please customers, and the hours are long. And I was like, oh yeah, I don't like this. I forgot about this part. On paper this sounds sexy and fun, but no, this is terrible. I don't want to do this. And the biggest takeaway at the time, beyond remembering that I didn't professionally like retail, was the experience at that point in Colorado was, it was brand new, but it was terrible. It was terrible. You'd go in and there'd be, armed security guards, and they'd pat you down basically, and they'd ID you 15 times, like through a camera. And that, and you'd go in. And I can remember the first dispensary I went to, I'm pretty sure I left with weed in a Ziploc bag. Like,
Wow.
it was still so budget. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where the experience was gross. And that was the thing that, pulling back again from my Apple experience, I was like, this needs to change. And there's room for creativity, and there's room for, this just needs help. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where the idea for CannaPlanners originally, just as like an analog, I was like, we'll just, I can somehow figure it out. We'll just become a creative agency. I'm not, I don't, I'm not creative in that sense. I can barely write my own name, but we'll figure it out. Like, how can we make this experience better? Like, I know that we can do it. So I, came back to Vermont, and after a couple of weeks, just figured out that it was going to be a version of what I was already doing at the job I already had, because I saw these business models working. And I said to myself, self, no, I said, I figured out that this was going to probably be a use case for the cannabis industry too. Like, how do we pull what we've learned in automotive and with HVAC and in real estate, and pull it into the dispensary, into the dispensary customer persona.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, that's pretty like it seems like a leap in a way, because you said you had no creative experience at the time, but you knew that there was room for improvement and enhancing the experience. So, did you kind of like have a business partner that had that skill set? Did you learn that over time? Like, what was the
Yeah.
deal there?
Unfortunately for all these past business partners, there were a couple, and some of them, none of them are here anymore. They didn't die. They just don't work at CannaPlanners anymore. But they, yeah. So my first one was Elena Castillo, who's amazing, an amazing woman, extremely talented. And what we did is with her help, I built out what I thought CannaPlanners would be. And what a lot of agencies do, this isn't like some crazy trade secret or anything like that, but we faked it. So we launched a website, and it had a portfolio of like 10 companies that we just made up. And they were all cannabis based, and they all had full pages of packaging layouts and like whatever the fuck, and like we just made it look dope, right? Like, because that's what we did. We made websites. We knew how to market online. So we
Yeah,
just made up a company, right? Like at that point, I don't know if you do this, but like I was collecting like domains in my GoDaddy account,
I've
and
done
and
that.
can
Yeah.
yeah. So I had like a bunch of them, right? And I didn't know what this was going to be called. And I just went to GoDaddy. I'm like, CannaPlanners, that works, Little did I know that every company and their mother would be called Canna something like 10 years later. But I liked as a musician, I liked the meter of CannaPlanners. There's a bounce to the name, right?
Right.
So even after all these years, I haven't gotten totally sick of it. Um, yeah, so we just faked it, dude. We
But
faked the
it's you
fuck out of it.
essentially you essentially, but I mean you and here's a nicer way to say it. You essentially like created your own portfolio. You know what I mean? That
Wait,
you could
that's
showcase your work.
100% what we did. I would
Yeah.
advise anybody thinking about being a creative person, like, to do this. Like, this is what you do, and it's no, there's no ethical issues. Obviously, I did this. Like, I don't. You're basically mocking up things that you would for the customers that you're trying to attract. Like, this isn't unusual. Like, you're going to start with nothing, and from nothing you must create something. So we just pulled it right out of thin air. Um, but so that was on the analog side, and then on the digital side, the first thing we did was build a WordPress builder. So we had our own version, because I thought that was going to be important, as opposed to um doing just setting up Squarespace websites, or even like utilizing available WordPress themes or anything like that. I thought it'd be more important to own something. It gives you more revenue opportunities,
Hmm.
which it
More
has. So
control too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and that set us up for control on, uh, obviously, like the quality of our product, but also the again, like future proofing the financial roadmap, and like what, okay, if we control this thing, like what can we then turn it into? What other kind of services can we start offering to our customers in order to make sure that they're getting the most out of it? So
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Well, that's
And
awesome.
now we just about to launch, so that thing's called Page Builder, and we're just about to launch Page Builder, like the 2.5. And at this point it's such an amazing tool. It's expertly built for specifically for retailers and brands. It integrates with, this is the thing, the tech stack aspect of this industry is evolving. Like literally every month there's like a new solution, there's a new this, there's a new widget, there's a new whatever plugin. So we've built something that's much more simple. It just makes it easier for us to integrate with cool things that will come out.
Yeah. Well, and since we're talking about one of your features or solutions, I mean, do you want to talk about the breadth of your services and kind of what you guys offer overall and how you're differentiated?
Is that what you want me to do?
I want to hear it from you.
I'll do
I'm
whatever you
curious.
want, Kevin.
I'm
Yeah, for
curious.
sure.
I mean, and this
So
is I'm curious about it because
yeah,
I'm in this industry, right? So like I have my own
yeah,
social media marketing agency where I interface with creative brands and
yes,
whatnot. And so the fact
yeah.
that you're niche in cannabis is super interesting. So
Yeah,
yes,
no, absolutely.
continue.
Of course. I'm happy to tell you everything about it. I love talking about CannaPlanners. It takes up 99% of my life. The other 1% is my dog Numi, who usually would be right at my feet, but she is waiting for cheeseburgers back at home. So yeah, we keep it pretty simple, and it's cool that there's agencies, there's people like you exploring other, I would call them traditional digital marketing at this point, traditional digital marketing services. We made a very cognizant decision to kind of stick in our lanes, right? Like we wanted to really focus on the things we do, the lanes that we've created, make sure that our products are awesome, that our tech partners are integrating as best possible, that our customers are having the best user experience, that they're maximizing the use of basically the websites we build, but that's through all the services we offer. And we keep it pretty simple, man. It's webs on the digital side, it's websites built through the CannaPlanners page builder. It's SEO services, it's retention marketing services, and then mostly that just means there was a need for Alpine IQ management, and we started filling that need.
Right, right,
So
right.
there's no software that we're managing software as opposed to like, building software on that side, but it's great. It
Sure.
it it, it increases the usability of what we're doing on the site side.
I'd be remiss to mention AI because it's just transforming so many industries, including digital marketing and whatnot, right? So,
Definitely.
are
Yeah.
y'all leveraging AI at all, and how has that impacted
Dude,
your
like
business?
crazy. Yeah.
It's nuts, right? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so we're growing out our AI, we're growing out our AI, the way in which we use AI all of the time. But simply put, like we're using it on the creative side. It helps us fill in elements. Like it creates sometimes some cool designs. We still think it's important to that a human do the design, that we focus on the brand. AI is good at kind of filling in the holes. On the digital side, we're using it to build websites to some extent. We're using it for sure to build content, SEO content. Um, yeah, we're so we have basically we build agents for each of our client in chat gpt, so we build their voice, we do all that stuff, and we're having it build the bulk of the content that we're providing.
Yeah. Yeah, I've found with AI, at least on my side, is like you said, I mean, like for some monotonous tasks or things that take a lot of time to do, you can kind of expedite those things and focus on more of the creative, and whatnot. So, it's not totally taking over at this point. I mean, but
No, no, definitely not.
it does have that value in terms of, like you said, filling in those gaps.
We're using it on the video side too. Like, so our brand, the social media content that we're creating for ourselves, it's all really stupid, and we use
It
a lot
looks
of
fun.
AI for
I checked it out on Instagram.
that. Thanks,
You had like a funny bong video. I think the most recent one. It's good. You're putting
so,
humans in front. You know what I mean? Which is important.
so
So
so here's what happened. So and my take on social media is, I would say at this point, pretty elderly millennial. So like, we're on paper not sexy. We're nerds who build websites and sometimes pretty things. Right. So in the beginning, like, my content strategy was knowledge based and milestone based. Here's a cool thing we built. Here's an interesting bit of information. Check out this packaging we designed. Like, stuff like that. Like, stuff that was good for my ego. Like, I was proud of those things, but like, no one gave a shit. Right. And then during COVID, like everybody else, I started a podcast, and I would clip it out, and I'd be interviewing super interesting people working in this, just like what you're doing. And I would turn that into content, and I couldn't figure it out. And the engagement didn't really happen. And then I got divorced. Okay. And I was like, at this personal crossroads where I, like, probably most humans that ever existed, when they're faced with such situations, like, just dove into work. All I did was
right.
work. And I wasn't being creative in the left brain sense of it, right? I wasn't playing the guitar. I wasn't writing music. I wasn't painting or whatever. I wasn't just being artistic. And I was just working, 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 working. And at some point, I decided, like, I just want to do something that makes me happy. And I think at this point, I just need to be silly. Right. So there was
Hmm.
this personal side of it. Like, I just had a need. I just wanted to kind of like have fun and be a dumb idiot on the internet for a minute.
Right.
Then this other thing happened, which is people started engaging with it. Like, I'm flippant about it, and I'm really like, I'm I say it's stupid content. I obviously, like, I don't mean that. Like, it's stupid
It's
in that
silly. It's silly.
it's
Yeah.
silly. It's
Yeah.
silly. Exactly. But one thing that started to happen, and this was kind of premeditated. Like, I hoped this would happen, which is, like, in being silly, right? I thought that I would make CannaPlanners. Remember, I was saying, on paper, it's not sexy, dude. But I want to build a brand. Like,
Right.
I want CannaPlanners to be
I
a brand.
totally understand what you're saying. Yeah, I
Yeah.
get it.
So I thought, okay, well, I can't, no one gives a shit about the cool stuff we're making,
Right.
except for us
Right.
and our customers. Like, that's great. No one cares about who I'm talking to. But people are engaging with me when I'm, like, being silly or being, like, flippant, what I'll call flippantly authentic, which is, I'll have a point, and I'm not being negative and ever. Like, I am for sure never trolling. Like, that's not my thing at all. But I will have, like, a sarcastic slant on things. I'll have, like, maybe like a silly perspective on a thing, right? But what was happening, and I hope the window into the company culture that I'm trying to build at CannaPlanners, and that's important to how they perceive CannaPlanners as a brand. That was the most important thing. Now, I'm not getting, like, tens of thousands of views when I, like, make a post, but because the cannabis industry is it's so small, and it's pretty incestuous in that, like, people recycle in and out of companies all the time. Like, it's a pretty small community. So, like, when you're silly and yet authentic, I don't know, it's worked for me.
I say that I totally get it because I do.
I think
Because
I've sold more.
because
I've sold more websites, Kevin, because of a dumb video about a
yeah,
bong
yeah, I
than
believe
I
it.
have because of and selling things is not the intent. The intent is to grow the brand. I hope people align with it. That's really all I want. But like
Right.
I've had more engagement because of a bong, a song about a bong, and my love affair, my literal love affair for a bong, right? Literal, metaphorical but literal in the
Right.
video, right?
Right.
More people now like I'll be at a trade show and people will call me CannaPlanners, which is weird, but it's exactly what I want. Not that people, I'm conflated with the company, but that people understand. Like there's a brand relationship. Something's bubbling here.
Yes. No, I totally get it. And you're absolutely right about the fact that like when you say no one gives a shit, I agree because it's so saturated when like especially digital agencies, creative agencies are putting out the same stuff, the same stuff. Here's the tips. Here's the this, here's what I did. Here's a customer testimonial. And I think there's a place for that in certain channels, but when you talk about Instagram, you talk about TikTok, I mean those are entertaining channels by nature. So silliness, humor, informative, right? Where you actually have dynamic visuals that makes them interested. They're watching hooks, like all that's important. So you're doing the right thing. I mean, keep doing it. Obviously, I know you will, but I'm saying
Thank
like
you.
others out there, like take note because authenticity and especially if you can put a humorous take on what you're doing, make light of something that's pretty funny, it goes a long way online, you know. So I think that's
This
pretty
industry is really hard. Like
interesting.
Kevin, this industry is really hard. People work really hard. There's a lot of attrition. There's a lot of M&A. Companies are being liquidated. They're going out of business in some instances. Pounds in some states are going for $300. Like this is a tough gig, dude. A tough
Right.
gig. But I wouldn't have it any like you still gotta have some fun doing it,
For
right?
sure.
And I think there's a lot of people who can get easily, and it's not just the cannabis industry. I think this is just life, right? But like you can get wrapped up in the complexities of it all. You can get wrapped up in like the hardships of the struggle of whatever. Um, or you can kind of be like, yeah, fuck it, whatever.
Right. And
You
smile
got
through it
this?
and be
Yeah,
grateful, you know, to even like
yeah,
have an opportunity to be in the industry and be part of something that's a movement that's actually making societal change, you know. We kind of
yeah.
overlook that sometimes because I know we get in the weeds, no pun intended. But hey, let me ask you this. This is kind of a good segue. So we talked a little bit about, I mean, a little bit
Yeah.
about authentic branding and how it's working for your strategy. Is that something that you'd say is like a strategy that should be implemented to kind of evolve for the future? Let's say like cannabis in 20 years from now, like where do you see design and kind of the message, everything kind of moving in that
Yeah.
in that year?
I think there we've yet to see the um Fortune 500, the Apple, the Nike, whatever. We have yet to see that brand in cannabis. Um but we'll see it in the next probably 5 years, like you've got cookies, you've got Wana. There's a couple brands that are really poised to do it. But I think I think it's an inevitable if with success that you stray into inauthenticity, that you eventually the company can't always be kind of personified by me, as an example, if we're
No,
talking about
it'll
CannaPlanners,
evolve,
right? Like
right? It'll evolve.
it
Yeah.
has to, right, and that's the idea, is like it has to evolve into its own thing. So like I think I and personification is actually the best way to like talk about this. Like I try to get my employees to think about CannaPlanners this way, and I know Josh, our creative director, when he's working with a customer who wants us to help them develop their brand, this is how we talk to them about it, which is pretend this is a baby, right? This baby is just a lump of flesh and bone, and it's like super helpless, and it's every second of its survival is dependent on you, right? So you've got to name it, you've got to feed it, you've got to clothe it. So what kind of clothes are you going to put on it, right? So like, who is this person, first of all, right? And then eventually it's a teenager, right? And it starts to develop its own person. The company starts to mature, and with it, like a person, it goes through these stages of kind of personality evolution, right? So CannaPlanners is, we're kind of at a rebellious teenager stage right now. We're not a baby anymore, but we're definitely not adults. we're we're still very much trying to figure it out. But this is the natural way of things. Like I'm the parent of this baby who is now a teenager, and like pretty soon it's gonna rebel against me and be like, "Fuck you, dad!" Right? And I can't wait for that moment, really, because then I know that it's kind of taken on a life for itself. And I think anybody anybody building a business, like, dude, that's ego right there for sure. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's whatever. If you think about legacy, which I don't really, but that's the ego of it. Is like I want to build something that kind of lasts. But I think like for me, it's not because of myself. At this point, there's 25 people at CannaPlanners, people with kids and mortgages and stuff, and not to mention hundreds of customers that also have like all these customers, right? Like we're just the amount of energy that we're supporting, it's already bigger than I am, which is like amazing. It's the best.
That's awesome. It's beautiful to kind of the way you put it, but like seeing it all play out also, you get to see this growth. Let's hope when you say it rebels that it's not and kicks you out. It's not the board kicking you out or anything like that. Cause that's kind of what
Like
I was
Steve
thinking.
Jobs.
Exactly. They're like, hey,
That's what happened to
fuck you,
Steve.
mom and dad, you're out. Yeah. No, that won't happen.
You know what?
Uh,
I mean, if I don't have a board right now, and lucky for me, I have pretty much carte blanche on decision making. But if I have a board and they decide it's time for me to go, then I'll listen to them. But it's gonna be a Steve Jobs kind of arc. I'll be back, you motherfuckers.
like Wolf of Wall Street. I'm not going anywhere.
You know what? I'm staying.
I'm staying. Yeah. Oh,
Exactly.
that's funny.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, as we wrap up, is there anything that you want to close with, or anything that's top of mind for you before we go?
You brought up gratitude before, and gratitude's one of those things. It's a muscle. It's like something you have to exercise, and it feels super unnatural like when you do it. And for me, it feels really unnatural every time. I'm like pushing myself to like go into gratitude. That moment before I'm like, okay, I need to spend a moment and reflect and like
It's because you're
give
moving
thanks.
fast, right?
Well, it's not only that, it's just because like it feels unnatural, like it feels kind of gross. It used to, I don't know, maybe this like some thing with my childhood, but like there is a part of me where it's like it's that moment before going to the gym. That's the best thing I can explain. When you're like,
Okay.
fuck, I hate myself. I don't want to do this. This feels stupid. I'm fat. I can't even like lift a weight, like whatever. It's kind of like that. So like this it for any business owners listening, entrepreneurs, like figure out how to flex that muscle, because the second you start the second the thing becomes just slightly bigger than yourself, you better start reflecting that energy back into the people who've helped you get there, because that's going to then push you to the next level, and it's going to then push you to the next level, because those circles become even bigger and bigger and bigger. So you brought up gratitude before, and it just made me think about like how hard of a thing that is to practice for me. But like it's such an important thing. Like like I have to stop and be like, thank you, thank you, like thank you to my whatever. Like
Hmm.
I'll write letters to customers, like when I'll send a customer a text or whatever. Um, that stuff's really important.
Yeah, no, that's it's a good way to end. And you know what? It's awesome that you're honest about that, and that because we all have things that we need to work on, and so it's beautiful, man. I just
Well,
take
I'm
time out of
grateful
your
for you
day.
for, yeah, man. I'm grateful for you for having me on your podcast and letting me ramble for the last hour.
I'm grateful that you were on. I had a really good time and I enjoyed the beautiful sunset in the back there. Again, if you're
Yeah, dude.
listening to this, take another watch or listen and check out the YouTube video because this is beautiful. Let me just take a screenshot of this. Hold on. Keep looking that way, Will. That was perfect. Hold on. No, you can do
It's
that. Hold on. Beautiful. I
good old
got it.
Gus. It's a
Oh
beautiful
man.
spot, dude. I'm lucky to live here for
You
sure.
are. It looks amazing. Let's do it again, Will. Let's keep in touch.
Come
And
on up anytime, dude. Absolutely,
if
Kevin.
I'm
Thank you
ever
so
in
much.
Vermont, I'm gonna look you up, man. All right.
Please do.
Talk to you later. Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye.
Cannabinoid Connect, the nation's most diverse cannabis related podcast.